right, welcome in here. 12 games on the NBA slate tonight. That's right, 12, but only a couple of them are double-digit spreads, which means got a lot of very interesting matchups here with about 9-10 games left in the regular season here. We still have no idea who the number one seed in the West is going to be. Will the West go through Denver? Will it go through... Hold on, as I have to make it one more time there.
Joe isn't moving, but he's talking.
Oh, what's going on there? I'm back now. Very good. Technology is wonderful when it works. We only got 10 games left, and we still have zero idea who it is that's going to be that number one seed in the West. And we've got some games here tonight that are going to go a long way in helping decide that between Minnesota, OKC, and Denver. Three-way tie at the top for the most part here. So it should be fun. We're going to break these games down here, of course, with two of the finest gentlemen here that you guys inevitably know, especially if you tuned into WagerTalk today. Earlier today is R1L, Steve Merrill in the house, as is Teddy Covers. Ready to rock here tonight, gentlemen. I love this guy. I mean, 12 games. We've all been kind of tied up there with college hoops, Merrill, but we got 12 games in the association tonight, and we still got a lot to decide over these final 9-10 games here. So the NBA is going to be a pretty fun one to watch here over these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, first, I have to apologize to my colleague and the fine senator from the state of Nevada. I didn't realize he and I were both doing the college basketball and NBA shows, or I would have promoted that better on Wager Talk today. And I also skipped over his big game breakdown, not once, but twice. Tried thrice, but we ran out of time. I figured Prez was out all week, so I had to give him a little bit of the business so he gets ready for April 1st when the Prez returns on April Fool's Day. Don't you worry, folks. He'll be back next week on Wager Talk today. But a little bit of April fooling in the NBA, right? We had two games last night, and me and Rob Vino talked about the Celtics as a 16.5-point road favorite. Well, they lost outright. I mean, it's just insane what's going on. But Boston, of course, has already locked up the one seed in the East. They've almost locked up the overall number one seed. They got to win about half their games, probably at best, to have that still over the next 10. But as you said, Joe, the Western Conference is where the action is, not only for the number one seed with several teams, but also for the Final Four playoff spots, those play-in rounds, and positioning in between. So I do think the Western Conference going forward over the next couple of weeks will give us more of a true handicap. It's not the Wild Wild West. It's going to be the more normal West. I think it's going to be the Wild Wild East as far as which teams play and which ones don't show up in that conference.
It's kind of mad. I mean, Teddy, it's crazy, right? The Nuggets, the Thunder, the Timberwolves are all tied in the loss column. Denver's got one fewer game to play. I think they have 9 games left. OKC and Minnesota have 10. And it's kind of hard to think that we're at this point here. And you, with how dominant Denver has been, certainly even after the All-Star break, you're like, oh, they already wrapped us up. No, they haven't wrapped anything up. We're still trying to figure out who the number 1 and number 2 seed is going to be out west, which is pretty competitive basketball, I think, down the stretch.
Yeah, let me make this as clear as I can make it. All right. From a handicapping standpoint, I pay zero attention to seeding. All right. Yeah, we got a 3-way battle in the West. That's for talking heads to talk about on TV because we all need stuff to talk about. From a handicapping standpoint, meaningless. Absolutely meaningless. And if it comes down to the 82nd game and, must win for home court, they're all going to be factored 5 times, 5 points too high. I would look to fade a lot of these must-win teams as opposed to back them. And not to a man. Denver doesn't care if they're the 1 seed or the 3 seed or the 2 seed or the 4 seed. OKC, Minnesota in the same boat. It's something, again, when you need content, you talk about stuff like who's going to be the number 1 seed. From betting standpoint, completely irrelevant, at least in this bettor's opinion.
Well, I mean, the comments coming out of the locker room, Teddy, have been, we have absolutely no intention of doing anything except taking the number 1 seed like we did last year for Denver, which I found interesting that was the mindset that, yeah, we ain't giving anybody anything. It's like scorched earth right now for them. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's how they got there a year ago. But to your point with OKC and Minnesota, I'm sure part of them would like to take them down and have the path go through their building. But the reality is, I don't think any of these teams are going to act like it's the end all be all, whether they get number 1, number 2, or number 3 for that matter. And we're going to have a couple of games tonight. They're going to help us actually decide which one and what order that is going to be. But before we get to Minnesota, Denver tonight, or Phoenix, OKC, early games, how about this one? The Clippers taking on the Orlando Magic. Now, for the most part, I'm not seeing there's nothing injury news-wise here, Merrill, that we've seen come up during the day. Markelle Fultz still questionable for Orlando, but the Clippers, a pretty clean slate. But this is a fascinating number. If it wasn't for the lack of a whistle the other night, I don't think the Clippers win a game. And Orlando couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat in their last game, which was very interesting. But this line, 2.5, we're seeing right now, opened up at -1 Clippers on the road. 2.5 now as the money's coming in on the Clippers. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, first, just to circle back on the must-win scenario, I've said this for years with the NFL, the NBA. If teams were good enough to win when they had to win, they wouldn't be in must-win situations. So it's something to keep in mind. But I do agree with you, Joe. I think the positioning matters a little bit. And the way I look at it is the key for me in handicapping the NBA, whether it's November, December, January, February, March, or April, is motivation. It's always about which teams are going to show up on a given night. And I do think the playoff positioning keys into that motivation, because a lot of times if you see a guy questionable on the injury report or probable load management, you figure they're more likely to play these guys now if they do want to improve their playoff positioning or get home court advantage. So I use it in that regard. I don't think emotionally it makes any difference, but I do think as far as knowing what teams might have certain players or if they're going to take a night off or not, you can start to factor that in. And these are two teams that are jockeying for hopefully a home court advantage in the playoffs. And we talked about Orlando the last several times on the show this week, that they've beaten up on bad teams and they've lost to good teams. And they lost to Golden State and Sacramento, their 2 most recent games. They'd won 5 straight before that against Brooklyn, Toronto twice, the Hornets. They did beat the Pelicans. But then they lost 2 before that against the Knicks, who were playing well at the time, the Pacers, who were decent. The 5 wins before that against the Nets, the terrible Jazz, the Pistons, the Hornets, again, the awful Wizards. So you get the point. Orlando has been a very good point spread team, the best in the league the last couple seasons. But as is often the case with teams that are rising from being bad teams, is they don't overlook bad teams and they beat up on them. They just haven't shown the ability to step up in class yet. Now, with that said, the Clippers have been a complete money burner over the past month. In fact, they have failed to cover now 14 of their last 20 games against the spread. They're 5-15 ATS their last 20. Some of those were as big favorites, but a lot of them were outright losses as favorites also, including against Philly and Indiana just this past week. I do lean towards the Magic here. They're 25-10 straight up at home. And I do think the the Harden honeymoon, is starting to wear off after a couple months. And the Clippers have been a fade for me now for the past month. And once again, they have failed to cover 15 of the last 20. I do get concerned if the Clippers show up that they're the better team, but I'll take a shot with Orlando here as a live home dog plus 2.5.
Teddy, how shocked are you at this number here? The total actually has also gone up a little bit, 209 to 212 here, but it does look like the Clippers are at least in the market's eyes worth a bet or two, huh?
My number is Orlando -2. Okay, that's how surprised I am with that number. Okay,
wow.
The Clippers, you can't lay points with the Clippers. All right, I've watched them 10 times since the All-Star break. All right, I watched last. And I'm telling you what, I mean, this is what I do. I watch the association pretty much every night. Okay. That's my life. I watch the NBA. I watched a game against Philly the other night. Okay. Oof. The Clips, I'll give them this. They dug down deep. I mean, Kawhi in the fourth quarter was special. And they won by a point because they didn't have a foul call against them. That's 6.5-point chalk. Another point spread failure for a team that has been a point spread disaster area since the All-Star break. We look at who they've covered. This is who they've covered against since the All-Star break. Portland, they were -12. They won by 13. They beat Chicago twice. One of the two was also points per decision by less than a field goal. They had that weird game at Minnesota. Remember the 89-88 where neither team could score? They covered that game at plus 2.5-point dogs. And they covered against Washington. And they covered against, no, they didn't even cover against Memphis. So basically, they're beating lottery teams by margin. Orlando off back-to-back losses. Orlando's no lottery team. And when the Magic get, we like this team off a loss. We like them even more off a couple losses. Magic or pass for this better.
Yeah, I don't get it here. It feels like Clippers are hard to lay any price with right now, and don't know what to do with this next game either. Teddy, is the Lakers and the Pacers in the house here tonight in Indiana. Obviously, stop me if you've heard this. LeBron and Anthony still questionable here. Mathurin is the only one listed on the Indiana Pacers side, and yet we've seen this go from 3 now to 4.5 for Indiana. And the total, shocker, also going from 241 to 244 and a half here. I don't know if the Lakers are going to have a 43-16 edge at the free throw line in this one, but how is this game different from what we just saw a couple of nights ago?
It's different because the Lakers aren't going to have a 10-1 free throw. One would think, And then, look, my NBA's been running real good. The college basketball has been hot. The NBA's been hot. It's been a good month here in March. We're making money for the clients right now. 8-2 with the last 10 in the NBA, 60-something% since the beginning of February. And now I'm up 200 units in the NBA since 2022, which is something I'm proud of. And I don't get proud of a lot of stuff, but I'm proud of accomplishing that. That being said, all right, one of my 2 losses in the last 10 games was Indiana plus the points against the Lakers. They were not the right side in that game. All right. That said, the free throw discrepancy was very notable. Now, the problem here, of course, is that now Indiana doesn't just have to win. They have to win by margin tonight. And look, it's a Pacers team. I loved them on that road trip. They laid an egg in the game against Chicago, when they were coming back. Or on the way back, when you play the 4 West Coast games and then the 1 East, and then you head back to the Midwest or the East, sometimes that last game is a little bit of a dead spot. It certainly was for Chicago. But we always talk about that first game back off a long road trip, and this is that, most assuredly, for Indiana. The first game back, and it was largely a successful road trip. They didn't go 3-2. They upset Golden State. They upset the Clippers. Straight up wins. So it wasn't like it was a bad road trip. And now you have to win by margin against a Lakers team that surged down the stretch last year and surging right now. In my mind, it's just a little bit too much to lay. I did not lay the price in Indiana. Lean towards Pacers, but I really wasn't that close to pulling the trigger on this one.
Yeah, not a spot you love for the Pacers here, Merrill, tonight. But, here we go. Lakers trying to make up for lost ground. But so is Philadelphia trying to avoid all sorts of play-in games here. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think the spot coming home after 5 straight road games is not ideal, but I think the spot might be worse for the Lakers overall here. This is their 3rd of 6 straight road games, and let's look at the recent road trip so far. The huge comeback to win in double overtime without LeBron is almost a 10-point dog at Milwaukee earlier this week on Tuesday. Then the no-rest situation at Memphis on Wednesday night. They win that one by 12. And now their 3rd game in 4 nights on the road. LeBron and Anthony Davis both listed as questionable. I could see a scenario where they don't go tonight, but then again, they have Brooklyn on Sunday, Toronto on Tuesday, Washington Wizards next Wednesday to finish the road trip. They could probably win those games with either LeBron or Anthony Davis out, and that would be probably the mindset. So maybe they both play tonight, and then they try to get them some rest during those bottom feeders. Another concern I would have with the Pacers is that they've played twice this year, and yes, they've lost both games. LeBron and Anthony Davis had 65 in the game back earlier this season on December 9th. And then the more recent meeting that Teddy talked about, they combined for 62 earlier last week on March 24th, or earlier this week, actually on Sunday. So if one of them doesn't go tonight, it would be a big blow. Once again, they're both listed as questionable. Also, when you dig into that box score from the December meeting, I always like to look at 3-point shooting. Lakers were just 2 for 13 from 3, and they still won that game outright by 14 points. I believe they were plus 40 from 2-point range. So once again, if Davis goes tonight, that's the guy to keep an eye on. And LeBron is always questionable. Anthony Davis is usually probable. He's only listed as questionable, so he might not be the guy that goes tonight if they sit one I do like the setup, though, for the Pacers, just because I think the situational stuff is worse for the Lakers playing the third and four nights on the road after tough back-to-back games.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting down the stretch for both those teams here. Who can get in, who can't. One team certainly trying to win as many damn games as humanly possible as the Golden State Warriors tonight, and they are taking on the Charlotte Hornets. And this is fascinating. 13, I think, we're seeing now. Kuminga is out for Golden State. Cody Martin, Seth Curry, Mark Williams, LaMelo Ball, the usual for the Charlotte Hornets here. And Teddy, you and I were talking before the show, and man, you came up with a number. It just blew me away here tonight with the Golden State Warriors laying 13 now on the road. What's going on with this Golden State team?
I'll tell you in 1 second. We have, I don't know how to call it breaking news. Markelle Fultz out for Orlando. We're seeing Orlando money. Gary Harris has been upgraded to probable. The 2.5's all gone now for the Magic. That's down to 2. 1.5's popping up. And of course, you talk about that December meeting between the Lakers and Pacers. Remember, Western Conference and Eastern Conference teams only play twice a year, one in each place. But the Pacers in NBA Cup revenge for that NBA Cup meeting with the Lakers that will not count as a regular season game because it was played here on the neutral court in Las Vegas. We talk about the Warriors and the Hornets. Look, this is a fascinating game from a trend standpoint. Golden State, last 10 tries as road favorites, 10-0 straight up, 10-0 against the spread. This has been their role, period. And yet, Golden State, last 4 visits to Charlotte, Steph Curry's old hometown, they've lost them all straight up, including -11 and -4.5. That's not once. That's 4 straight meetings Golden State has lost on this floor. You have to go back before the pandemic since they won here. And Charlotte, fascinating, all right? From the All-Star break until today, this is the first time that they've played 2 consecutive games on the same floor. Their longest homestand was 1. They've had multiple road trips during this span. So you're talking about a team that's literally had a court change for, we counted them up. Was it 19 straight games, Joe? And today's the one game they don't. They finally don't. They get a second game. And we heard Steve Clifford talking about it. All right. I heard Steve Clifford talking about it because I watch all these stupid press conferences. But Steve Clifford was saying, all we got to do is get home. We get home, get in our beds, we'll be okay. And what did they do last time? Well, nothing fraudulent about that win over Cleveland. They were the better of the 2 teams. This is the other key factor, all right? Warriors 10-0, last 10 is road chalk. Hornets 4-0 straight up, last 4 at home versus Golden State. Charlotte at home in their last 10, they're only 7-3 ATS during that span.
Wow.
That includes 5 straight up wins, all right? Most of them as underdogs. But the 7-3 ATS last 10, they had 2 losses by a half point against the spread, literally by a half point. They could easily be 9-1 against the number in their last 10. So this home court's actually been worth something of late. 13, a little bit rich in what looks like something of a flat spot for Golden State after just beating Orlando and Miami on back-to-backs, now 3rd and 4 nights. They'll win. I'm not convinced they win by margin.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot. Kind of crazy when you think about that, Merrill, with Golden State here as road chalk. But I'm seeing 13s popping up here in some spots. Are you that confident with Golden State here to be laying that kind of number?
I'm conflicted, and I'll be passing this game, and I'll give you the reasons why for each team. First of all, as we've talked about all week, Ralph Michaels had a great angle earlier this week he made public, is that double-digit favorites from Game 70 on have been a long-term winning play over the last 6 years, but it's basically break-even for home teams. The sweet spot has been road favorite. Double-digit road favorites the last 10 games of the season are over 70% going back to 2018. So obviously Golden State fits that situation, but the Celtics also fit it last night. Didn't matter. But on the surface, it does not look like a focused spot for Golden State for a few reasons. First of all, they're coming off a straight-up dog win against Orlando. The game before that was an important win against Miami. So you could see a hangover here. And they also just beat the Hornets earlier, about a month ago, on February 23rd. And they were only a 12.5-point home favorite in that game, and they won by 13. Now they're laying 13 on the road, and as Teddy showed, Charlotte's had a better edge at home this year than some teams. And defensive numbers are pretty much the same. Their offensive numbers are better. The Hornets have been a better team at home offensively. So while these double-digit road favorites have been good plays in recent years late in the season, I would probably buck that trend here. I think it's inflated, and there are some reasons to like Charlotte. I'll also point out here, since we're not doing a Sunday show on Easter Sunday, that it could be a good fade of the Clippers Sunday with these Hornets if LA wins tonight in Orlando. And the reason I say that is it would be a back-to-back win situation for the Clippers. They have not won more than 2 straight games over their last 20 going back to mid-February, and they'll probably be laying a good chunk. And I could see Charlotte being a live home dog maybe Sunday. I would lean that way tonight, but Sunday might be the spot if the Clippers beat Orlando.
Kind of like that look ahead there. Big shout out to the chat room here. A Life in Vegas in the house. S. Warrior finally got that ankle bracelet off. Way to go. Appreciate you stopping back here. Andrew G. in the house. Javi ready to roll here tonight. And guys, don't forget, hit that like button if you could. And of course, don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're new to us here at WagerTalk TV. Shout out to Instagram and the chat room there. John Whitlock, Joshman, Blaze, appreciate you guys hanging out with us here, as well as those on a mobile phone here watching us via YouTube Shorts. We are getting, Teddy, some questions about this Sixers and Cavs game here tonight. I guess a lot of people believing that Donovan Mitchell likely to make his return here tonight. All that we heard about Embiid, I still think he's out. I don't think he's coming in here. This number is hovering around 9 now, 7.5, I believe this morning, but now we've got 9 showing up here. So somebody's not playing. What did you think of this game?
So we talk about teams in point spread ranges. Cleveland should not be laying 9 to anyone right now. I don't care if Donovan Mitchell's back. Certainly. And how often do we see it? The star comes back, the first game, everyone else relaxes. I mean, this isn't a new or different concept. I will rarely lay a price with a team in the first game with the star back in the lineup. And especially now that it's getting steamed up, I'm getting more and more tempted by the Cavs in this contest. I'm sorry, by the Sixers in this contest. I want no part of Cleveland. If you watch Cleveland play at Charlotte the other night, and I did, you saw an exhausted team. I just talked about some of the issues that Charlotte has been with schedule-wise. Cleveland, schedule-wise, has been every bit as brutal, if not more brutal. All right? For the better part of the last month, they haven't had more than a single day off at any given time. I think they had 2 days off between New Orleans and Houston. That's the only time all month. They've had 4 sets of back-to-backs this month, another one last month. They have really looked like a tired team. You read the quotes out of the locker room. The quotes are all, we just got to hang on. We just got to hang on. We just got to hang on. This isn't a team to lay points with. Philly fought tooth and nail, all right, to get a W against James Harden and company the other night. They came up a little bit short. I like a team off a non-upset win in which they fought to fight again the next day, the next game. Philly plus the points for me. And again, as I'm starting to see 9s popping up, I mean, it wasn't a client play this morning. No, I'm very tempted by the 76ers. I'm likely to have some 76ers in my pocket before tip-off.
Yeah, buckle up, folks. Going to be a fun night with 12 games on the card here. And Merrill, along those lines of, hell no, I can't lay that kind of number with a team. Are you running the window to lay 2 touchdowns with Miami tonight, Merrill? Is that something that was on your menu of things to do today? My goodness.
Teddy said he's also fading the Dolphins under 10.5 wins next year, so he's not laying the 2 touchdowns with either Miami team. Along Teddy's point about the Sixers being a live dog, by the way, their last 15 games, they've either won or lost by 9 or less. They've only lost by more than 9 3 times the last 15 games, so it does look like they probably are a live dog at that inflated number tonight, plus the 9. Your Miami Heat, of course, as I mentioned, they just had that game against the Golden State Warriors the other night. Did not turn out too well. Portland is a pure bottom feeder right now, though, and one of the reasons, as Ralph Michaels pointed out, that these double-digit favorites over the last month of the season have done well in recent years is because a lot of teams do just mail it in down the stretch, and Portland appears to be one of those teams right now. They've lost 8 straight, and they've only covered 3 of those 8 games during that span with multiple double-digit losses. Miami off that bad loss by 21 against Golden State, in which I thought was a good spot for the Heat. Should mean focus spot tonight. So if you're going to play it, I would lay it. Offense is a concern. They've shot 40% or worse in 3 of their last 5 games, but they should get pretty healthy tonight against a bad Blazer defense.
Yeah, I mean, Teddy, you and I kind of laughed at it a little bit and be like, yeah, they do realize this is, I get they're playing a G League team, but like Miami can't be laying 14 points, or can they?
No. Look, no. So I just went back and looked. Miami's been double-digit chalk 4 times this year. All right, 4 previous occasions. They were 11.5 against the Wizards earlier this month. They lost that game straight up. They were 11 against Detroit. Didn't really sniff a point spread cover there. Won that by only 8. They were 11.5 against Memphis. Oh, they lost that game straight up too. And then they were 10 on opening day against Detroit, and they won that game by a single point. So it's not even like they're coming close in these contests. Miami, we know the MO of this team. All right, they play up or down the level of competition. They've been a bad favorite and a good underdog since Jimmy Butler got there. All right. Now, admittedly, the Blazers are starting 5 rookies. And when you're starting 5 rookies, you're going to take some beats. And that's why this isn't a client play for me today, is Portland cannot be trusted. But if I'm playing the game, it's Portland plus the points. I want no part of Miami in this point spread range. It's not just a week. It's not just a month. It's like 5 years worth of data tells us don't lay double digits at home with Miami against bottom feeders. They never take these games seriously.
No, they don't here. They'll win, but winning by 2 touchdowns, a totally different animal here. Also, having to lay points on the road will be what you have to do for Phoenix, I believe, tonight there, Merrill. Nurkic questionable, Bradley Beal active, SGA still doubtful here in this one, but along those lines, are we of the mindset that we can trust the Phoenix Suns to go to OKC and lay, what is it now, 2? What do we got now, -2, 2.5?
See mostly 1.5 still on the WagerTalk live odds screen, but it's been fluctuating. What jumps out to me, Joe, is that we've got an Oklahoma City team that's still fighting for the number 1 overall seed, and they're a home dog. I mean, that doesn't bode too well, obviously, for their pedigree, but every game, its situation is different with the injuries. Phoenix, when healthy, is a very explosive team, and they do have their top 3. But if you look at their 3 most efficient 5-man rotations, I talked about this earlier this week, Nurkic is in all 3 of those, along with the big 3. So he is a guy to keep an eye on. He's questionable once again with the ankle sprain. We'll see if he goes tonight or not. Phoenix enters this game winning 4 of their last 5, both straight up in ATS. That was a big win at Denver, though, on Wednesday night as a 7-point dog. So you got to wonder if this could be a little bit of a flat spot, especially the last of 5 straight road games coming up against New Orleans on Sunday. So hard to imagine that team fighting for a 1 seed as a home dog could be a sandwich situation for the Suns, but it might be. Meanwhile, Oklahoma City coming off that OT loss against an underrated Houston Rockets team. It's been the best moneymaker in sports over the last couple of weeks. Could be a bounce-back spot for OKC.
I mean, Teddy, when you go with that, star player out, but he was out last game as well. And Phoenix with Bradley Beal looks like Nurkic to go as well. It's a tough spot to be like, yeah, I can trust Phoenix to do it. Or should we be looking at? Is that the only way you can look here in this one?
So the Rockets played with the Thunder. Just lost to the Rockets. The Thunder were 7-point chalk in that game, at least at the open. They closed, I think, 5.5. And without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, they lost the game straight up. In fact, they played 2 games this year without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They've lost both those games straight up. So you know me, I got to go back and check this stuff. What happened last year without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? And they won on the last day of the season without him, so I threw that game out. There were some October games and November games, and I didn't really look at them that closely. But down the stretch without Alexander, there was a 9-game span that they were without him. They went 3-6 straight up. The 3 wins, I think it was Utah, Detroit, and Washington, kind of a deal. They were all lottery teams. So in the last 2 years, without Shea in the lineup, we're talking about a team that can beat lottery teams. Phoenix is no lottery team. End of write-up.
Like the way it goes. There it is here, guys. All right, we got a couple of more games here requested in the chat room coming from Instagram. In fact, the Josh Man 1502 wants to know about, obviously, the big game here with Minnesota taking on Denver tonight. I am seeing sevens right now. Denver laying 7, total creeping up a little bit to 212 here, Merrill. Again, pretty important securing the number 1 seed here. And I'm looking at current injuries or the latest injury report here. Gobert questionable still. So is Anthony Edwards. Jamal Murray questionable. Aaron Gordon is a go. I don't know if you're seeing anything new coming out there, but for the most part, Gobert and Edwards still questionable. 7 is what Denver is laying. Does that tell you that maybe one of these guys isn't going tonight? Or if both go, should we be grabbing the 7 right now?
Yeah, I mean, they're both questionable. Anthony Towns, of course, been out for the past month. Jokic up to probable is a good sign for the Nuggets. Murray questionable. A lot of uncertainty in this game. But the one thing that is certain in my mind is that Denver should be focused for a couple reasons. First of all, this team was 15-2 straight up after the All-Star break. Keep in mind, they lost their last 3 games going into the break. Obviously, they were looking ahead to the week-long vacation. They came out swinging 15-2 straight up. Then they lost to Phoenix as a 7-point home favorite Wednesday night. You mentioned, Joe, how they're talking about they want the 1 seed. And now look who they're playing. The up-and-coming team in the West who's had a chance of the 1 seed all season, still in contention. So not only is Denver coming off a loss, but they're facing a high-profile opponent at home Friday night. That'd be the only way I'd play this one. It might be a little pricey, but I think the Nuggets in a focus spot is not a team I'm looking to get in front of.
What did you think, Terry, when you saw this line? It was 6.5 this morning, but with Gobert and Edwards questionable, how would you approach this line here? If you like Minnesota, you take the points now, or do you just avoid it altogether?
So my number on the game is 4.5/5. That's with a healthy Edwards and a healthy Gobert. So obviously those guys are worth something. And both of them are worth something for this matchup. They're worth a ton. Minnesota's going to go as far as Anthony Edwards is going to take them. All right. Anthony Edwards is their key guy. And when Edwards is engaged and smiling and running all over the court, they're as good a team as there is in this league. All right. When Edwards isn't focused or not healthy or not engaged the same way, they're going to lose games. They're going to lose series. I worry more about Minnesota in terms of end game scenarios. They've had a problem closing teams out. I don't like Minnesota in that -3 range, -4 range, plus, a couple of points because they've had trouble closing tight games out. But at +7, I mean, these two teams just played in Minnesota, a week ago, a week and a half ago? And that game was tight throughout. Denver shot the ball well. They finished the game 52% from the floor, 52% from three-point range, and they won by 3. I think it's a little bit rich. Again, my numbers is a little bit shorter. And we talked about Denver. You guys keep talking about Denver in the home court. I don't care what the coach is saying. All right, the coach is going to, Malone, yeah, we want the home court. The player quotes, they could give 2 flying bleeps, and I think we know that. And we saw it the other night against Phoenix, where Phoenix was the hungry team, and Denver's like, yeah, when's the postseason start? Looking at their watch. Yeah, I'm not in a rush to lay points with the Nuggets down the stretch. I'm really not. This team's ready for the postseason, and I'm not convinced they're fully focused on the last 8 or 10 games.
No, Teddy, they absolutely will do anything. Keep betting them. Just keep betting Denver up down the stretch. Do us a favor. It would be fantastic. All right, one more question here, and I did see it in a couple of different spots. A lot of questions about the New York Knicks now, who have won, 3 games in a row, I think by double digits. They're 7-1 straight up. Actually, I believe they're 6-1-1 against the spread in the last 8. But my goodness, the Spurs have been a very interesting team to bet on too. 12-6 against the number in their last 18 here, Merrill. I'm not seeing anything outside of the usual suspects as far as injuries go. Alec Burks is questionable. Anunoby and Randall, we know. Keldon Johnson is questionable, but that's it for the Spurs. Seems like, can you get in front of that train of the New York Knicks and what they're doing right now?
Yeah, the Knicks have been as consistently inconsistent as any team in the league this year. They've had nice runs, both good and bad. You know, they had that 2-for-1 exchange with Toronto at the end of the year, at the end of the calendar year. Went on a nice run in January, then they were ice cold. Brunson was hurt for a while. I think it's the most underrated star in the NBA. But now with him back in the lineup, they're smoking again. They're 7-1 straight up, 6-1-1 against the spread their last 8. We talked about them here on the Wednesday show. I mentioned how they blew out Detroit by 25 as a 17-point favorite on Monday. And then nobody wanted to lay 14 on the road with the Knicks against Toronto. Well, what did they do? They won by 44. I recommended them here on the show. So I'm not getting in front of this Knicks train right now. It does look like the Spurs are playing hard. Maybe they're starting to figure some things out. On the defensive end, they've been a little bit better at times, but they still are routinely giving up 50% shooting or more. So the Knicks have a substantial defensive edge in this game, and that's really been the key. If you go back to the first week of March, Knicks have won 7 of 8. They've won 8 of their last 10. Over those last 10 games, they've held 6 of those 10 opponents to 40% or less shooting, which is incredibly low now in the modern NBA. A lot of teams give up 50 on average, like the Spurs. So big defensive edge here for San Antonio. And the Knicks are a team I'm not looking to get in front of. Now, obviously, laying down on the road is a pricey number, but you could have said the same thing at Toronto the other night, and they blew them out of the water.
Yeah. I mean, Teddy, what do you think with this Knicks team right now? Are they no way you're getting in front of them? They've been pretty profitable, San Antonio as well lately.
So when you look at the, I'm not a huge stat guy,
right?
But sometimes stuff just jumps out at you. All right, last 10 games, San Antonio, number 9 in the NBA defensively. Number 9 in the NBA. The Spurs, the awful lottery-bound Spurs. Merrill just talked about it. 12-6 ATS their last 18. This team isn't throwing in the towel. This team isn't giving up on their season. You read the quotes coming out of that locker room. These guys like each other. They're hungry, and they're coming to play. Now, San Antonio's end game at times is pretty ugly. All right. You know, it's frustrating when you have the Spurs plus the points and they're competitive for 3.5 quarters, and then the last half of the fourth quarter is not so pretty. And that could easily happen here against the Knicks. But New York's coming off wins against 2 teams that, you know, as weak as it gets, you know, Toronto and Detroit. Are there 2 weaker teams in the NBA right now? They're not. San Antonio is not that. They might be a lottery team, but they're still playing. I think it's too many points. Spurs are past. For me, my number on the game is only 6.5.
Oh, 6.5. There you go. Here, all right. Before we wrap it up here on this holiday weekend, of course, want to wish you and yours a very safe and happy holiday weekend. Those that are celebrating. And Teddy, you were on the college basketball show earlier. I know you're locked and loaded tonight in a college hoops game. What do you got going on in the NBA tonight?
Yeah, we got a single best bet in the association for tonight. Although, man, I'm continuing to be tempted by Philly. I might add Philly. But I do have a single best bet in the association. I've got 1 in MLB. We've got 2 in college hoops, including a rare 5% big tickets. Only had 2 of those all year in college basketball. They're 2-0 so far this season. Number 3 goes tonight. You can get them all packaged together at a discount. WagerTalk.com, SportsMemo.com. Been running real good across sports. I encourage you. It's a good time to get on board.
Oh, I love it. And how about it, Merrill? You as well here tonight. College basketball, Sweet 16, as well as NBA. What do you got rolling here for us tonight?
Yeah, first of all, I got a free play on an NBA game we did not talk about here on the show.
Ooh.
So a bonus free play for one of those 12 games that we did not get to on the late card. So go check that out on my page right now. Free NBA play for Friday night for everyone. But more importantly, 3 strong best bets in basketball tonight. No baseball. I gave my top 2 baseball opinions for free on the MLB show earlier. That's available right here on WagerTalk TV. They're both late West Coast games. And oh, by the way, 2-0 sweep yesterday on Thursday. We cashed the free play for everyone on the website. And more importantly, a 16-1 best bet winner to start off opening night. I've got, once again, 3 basketball best bets tonight, though, an NBA and 2 tournament games, one early, one late, so an incredible 3-for-1 package. You can get 1 for $25 or get all 3 for $29. Check that out with that, a bonus free NBA game, Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. And also, don't forget my Sweet 16 Fade the Public video, all 4 Friday night games analyzed in depth here on the channel right now. And then I'll be back Saturday and also back Sunday with Elite 8 updates. So click the bell when you subscribe here on WagerTalk TV.
Yep. All right. There you go. You got it here, guys. Again, big shout out to those in the chat room here. GB, Have, always a pleasure. Tyler, want to thank you guys. S. Warrior, we all know you're going to the Miami game here tonight. You lay into 14. You didn't hear a damn word we said all day long. Also, a life in Vegas. We appreciate you guys all together, including those of you guys joining us here via your mobile phone on YouTube Shorts. Face the Great. Did we get to the point fast enough for you? I certainly hope so. We can clap it out afterwards if you like. Also, Desmond Castro, good luck with that big parlay you're rolling with here tonight. And Instagram, Lions, Gator, and CJ Harden. Well, good luck with that. We appreciate you guys. Again, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. Make sure you come back and check out all the other great content we have on our YouTube page here, guys. We've got game breakdowns, best bets up and down, whether it be Major League Baseball, NBA, college hoops, NHL. We have got you covered. And we'll be back tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. for a Saturday edition of Last Call. All those last-minute questions you need answered, we've got you covered. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and come back and join us again tomorrow. Best of luck with all your plays here tonight. Have a happy holiday. We'll see you again soon.